All right, so the bad news is that Jane has lost power in North Asheville, and then if we only have Joe and Lindsay, it means we don't have a quorum. Jane, I think we can give her a few minutes if everybody's okay with that. I've given her the number to call in, and her husband, I think they've got two phones, one's an iPhone, whatever, but where they are is not great connectivity. So I was trying to advise them on how to like download the app and jump on the meeting. So
okay, no worries. From my side,
wait a few minutes to actually start, but I'm hoping we can. She said she looked at the drawings and has a few questions. She said she looked at the drawings.
Sasha, hold on real quick. We're actually live on YouTube now because it's 1 o'clock. We're actually live on YouTube now because it's 1 o'clock. We're actually live on YouTube now because it's 1 o'clock.
All right, so I will just introduce this meeting. We are going live. It's 1 o'clock. This is the Planning and Design Review Committee of the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission. We are waiting on our chairperson, Jane Matthews, who chairs this committee, has just lost power about 10 minutes ago in North Asheville. And right now we don't have a quorum. So we are gonna wait a few minutes to see if she can make this meeting. If that doesn't happen, we may try to quickly set up another meeting time, maybe later this week. I mean, we have to give at least 48 hours for public notice. And then I have to find a time where everybody else could meet, but I'm sorry for the delay. And just for anybody who's watching, I don't know if anybody is watching, but we have one item on the agenda today, and that item is the expansion to the Dr. Wesley Grant Senior Southside Center, which is a City of Asheville bond project. And we have drawings that we'll be showing and that are available on our Google Drive. If anybody would like them, they can contact me. So we'll just wait a few minutes. Thank you, Ashley. So I got a question about the design. Yes, Joe, I think Dorothea with the architecture firm will go over all the drawings before taking questions, for sure.
That's correct.
We'll give it a few more minutes. I don't, it may make more sense to reschedule. I hate to do that, but if, I guess Joe can see the screen, which is good. So we've got at least 2 out of 3 people could see the screen, but if Jane can't see, I don't know. We'll just wait to see if she can make it. There you are, Jane. Great. Jane, thanks. We can see you and hear you, it sounds like.
Yeah, the power just came back on, so
okay.
Tell you, it's a nightmare. I apologize to whoever in the world.
It's all right.
And I'm still trying to download the app, and it's not loaded. So.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I gave a general introduction at the beginning while you were out of power. I'll just do that again. This is the Planning and Design Review Committee for the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission. And we're here to review the plans for design review of the plans for the Grant Center expansion. And Jane Matthews is our chair. And Jane, I will let you do roll call and then go into the topic.
Okay, and don't think we have very many people here, right? I see Joe Ransmeyer. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Joe. And Lindsay Roden.
I am here.
Okay, and myself, Jane Matthews. So we have absent Kate and Kaya and Jeremy Goldstein, correct? Thank you. Thank you.
And Dorothea Schultz is here with PBC&L Architecture to present the plans. So.
With Chuck Nixon Architecture.
They keep changing names. You got to check this week. Right, Dorothea.
5 years. Sorry. Showing my age.
No worries. All good. It's confusing when names change. All right, is this where I take over, Sasha? All right. Well, thanks for having us. Jane, thank you for making time, and Lindsay and Joe. Very nice to see you over the screen. Especially you, Jane, because I'm sure you'll be very interested in this project. We also have Pete Wall here, who has been facilitating this from the City of Asheville and the Parks and Recreation Department. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview and then take your questions that you might have. So as you see, we're planning an extension to the Grand Center, and this follows process, kind of to give you a little preview, a process that started with a community engagement process that asked, the residents of the area kind of what they're envisioning for that whole parks area there around the Grand Center, kind of what uses they were looking at that they would like to see incorporated that would serve their community. And based on that, we had, through an advanced planning process, created a master plan just to kind of see how things fit, and developed a phasing where now this first phase would be to extend the Grand Center with a gym, mainly in some added program space. And the project has kind of developed from there on out. And I will share my screen so that y'all can see something. Give me just a second. Also go full screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. It might take a second for transitions just because of the remote connection. So if it doesn't immediately turn, then just give it a few seconds. So just for orientation, for anybody who might not know exactly where this is located, we're located in the River Arts District on the corner of Depot Street and Livingston Street. This is basically where the existing Grand Center is located. And it's really surrounded by a site with a lot of open space that is a big grassy area that already, I think, has soccer and other activities on it. There is Town Branch, which is this little creek on the side of it. It's very wooded. And along the side is also where a greenway portion is planned that kind of connects to the overall one of the overall greenways for Asheville. Just gonna go to the next slide. Might just take a second to go there. These are some site photos that just show the conditions. So this is the kind of entrance face of the existing Grand Center, which is kind of a one-story building. It has this auditorium space that is expressed to this volume with this nice butterfly roof. And this glazed area here is for the entrance lobby. And then surrounding the main auditorium are classroom spaces and support spaces kind of on the other faces that you can kind of see a little bit maybe here on this next image. And as you can see in these images, this, for example, the one to the right here on the upper right-hand side, this shows these large grassy areas. It shows also where this greenway, there's already a path existing, but where it would be extended. And just in general, kind of these ample spaces. The photos here on the bottom show a little bit of what the topography is like, which is right at the corner of Depot and Livingston. You're actually quite a little bit higher, so you have these views down onto the side. Right about here in the middle where the trees open is actually where this new gym would be located. And then similar, if one goes a little bit to the side, you can see this existing parking lot. And then if we go here to the next sheet, which will come up right here. So basically right up front here of our concept rendering is where this parking lot is located. And then the existing building with this new gym volume next to it. This particular sheet talks a little bit about the materiality and kind of how we see it, how we see the new building connecting the existing building, as well as the River Arts District in general in this particular sector. So the existing building, the main materials are brick veneer. There's kind kind of a finer brick veneer, kind of more architectural brick, and then on the base, split face CMU kind of winds around the building and kind of modulates the different ground level conditions. There is a corrugated metal panel, sort of accents the roof as well as secondary spaces. There are there's storefront and glazing and windows that all have clear anodized aluminum frames and mullions. And then there's also a palette of the wood deck that's found in all spaces, tongue and groove wood decking, as well as translucent wall panels kind of for the higher spaces to get light into the building, as well as the corridors actually that have these translucent panels as a roof material to get natural light into kind of interior spaces of the building. What's not so easy to see in this picture, but we did try to pick it up here on our rendering, is that also there's green roofs on these lower roofs that kind of surround the building. And while we're not planning on having any green roofs based on our kind of particular conditions, we do hope to kind of extend the gesture through kind of very visible bioswale kind of garden space right up at front that kind of showcases the kind of sustainable stormwater treatment measures we're looking at. The building material itself, as I mentioned, is we're trying to pick up from the existing. There's also trying to mediate that we have, in fact, a rather large volume of building. The gym by nature is a fairly tall building and pretty voluminous, and at the same time does not have as much kind of architectural definition. So the main facade is this south facade that faces the public spaces. And that is also where we try to have most definition. So we're looking to have on the kind of ground level to use the brick veneer to match the existing building that kind of wraps around the public spaces, also facing the court, the outdoor court. The rest of the building would be a metal panel, probably with this particular kind of finish that we're showing here, which is an acrylic coated galvalume finish. So it has a little bit the galvanized speckles in it, and generally is meant to kind of reflect beautiful green spaces around in it. And then we're also looking to just, continue the language of the glazing with clear anodized mullions, of course, and then have a decorative sunshade element at the south facade that is shading a kind of a large glazing for the gym on the south. One is somewhat still in development. It's based on us talking to different manufacturers, and also at this particular stage in the project, checking with a budget what we can have here. I'm just going to go to the next slide here. Shows the kind of overall site plan more from a civil engineering perspective. That just kind of like shows how the building connects to the existing. So we'll have this kind of small connector, and then the new building volume is kind of stands quite on its own. I'm going to go actually right to the next slide, which is the landscape architecture slide, which shows a little bit better kind of what's happening on the site. So we're aiming to kind of more specifically give a wider kind of entrance paving here, kind of also accommodating for, a higher visitor flow. We have the interior gym here to the west side, and then this exterior covered court, which also then becomes kind of connected to general exterior public and community spaces. And the roof slope is such that all the large roof basically sheds to the south side, and therefore we're picking up stormwater really on the south side with a bioswale. You might not be able to see it that well unless I zoom in, but the idea is to plant these kind of ornamental grasses and perennials in here to actually express it kind of in a beautiful way. So it's a more decorative swale. There's kind of a bridge across the swale that connects the entrance spaces to these spaces, and then to this outdoor court. And then at the front, also more kind of an idea of a porch or community gathering space where people can gather, to watch obviously any kind of games going on, and just to kind of generally give the community spaces to come together. There's also an idea to use some kind of mounds here to sort of give a backdrop around this open gym, kind of where it sort of transitions out into this kind of grassy space, kind of a little bit of a buffer. And then of course have trees for both shade as well as kind of this natural field, and to fulfill any kind of building impact plantings we would be doing. Let's see. I think the next slides, this is just a floor plan that I talked already. We would maintain the main entrance. We're connecting through the existing lobby into the new building, which is kind of divided by this corridor that then on one hand leads to the gym, which has a basketball court and an area for a running track around it, as well as some flexible space. And then on the other side, we would have a flexible program space for various types of activities. And then a small office, bathrooms, and mechanical spaces. And then the outdoor court out here. From an elevation standpoint, I'm just trying to navigate there, give me a second. So these elevations are kind of a little bit more zoomed out just to kind of show the condition with the existing building, which is sometimes a little bit hard to see, but this is this kind of south facade. You can see it's fairly tall. It's actually about 28 feet tall. So as a mass, it is pretty dominant, which is why we're proposing also this kind of sunscreen to break it down, as well as kind of tie these two spaces, the exterior court and the interior court, together. The volume, the brick volume here is also meant to be a possible space for community art, which would also kind of further enhance the community aspect and the engagement in this kind of outdoor areas. On the back side, the volume grows up to 39 feet. So it's rather tall, but because we have an outdoor court and an indoor court, obviously this has a high degree of transparency. I mean, there's only the structure, and then the screen is really, far on the south side, which also allows kind of for these spaces behind the gym to become activated. This is a little bit hard to see. Actually, it's better to see here on this side. The program space itself follows a bit the logic of the auditorium space here by picking up the kind of roof slope and general language of having the brick veneer transition to like a metal panel and then to the roof. And the support spaces are kind of in a similar language as the support spaces at the front of the existing building, which is really just to kind of create a parapet with a bit of kind of canopy or shade to break it up, but it's meant to screen the rooftop mechanical units from view. And we have all of those views, particularly for those facades, kind of as they're broken down right now, in more detail. So this would be this south facade with the decorative screen and the glazing behind it. This is the open area here. This is kind of, if you look kind of onto the open area and you see also the side of the gym where the brick basically kind of wraps into this area. Give me a second. This is again this view from the north, kind of the park side of the side toward the greenway as well. And then because I couldn't quite fit it all in, the program space and the gym from the west side with the program space here. The kind of mechanical support space is sort of tucked into the area here. And this is a view kind of from between the buildings, really. This is this kind of little connector that connects the two buildings. And then we're looking onto this office area and the program space also having like a translucent wall panel to allow for more light. I think that's it. I probably forgot something, but I hope that you have questions for me and that I can answer them.
Thank you, Dorothea. I guess I will ask the members of the committee who are present if you have any questions or comments.
Hey, it's Lindsay.
Hey, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm on. Okay. I did have a question. I was just looking through. I actually don't know if we've got a landscape architect with us today, so I didn't study shrubs, and that might be something we think about. But I was just curious if you guys, and I don't even know in the first phase, but the dumpster enclosure and garbage, do you have that planned yet?
Oh, yeah, there's a dumpster.
Well,
at the back. Yeah.
There's
okay,
an
it's going to be part of
existing
this thing.
dumpster. Yeah, we're not adding onto that.
Okay.
We're just keeping the existing.
Yeah, and I will say, Lindsay, as architect for the first phase, it wasn't in the river district at the time. So, so the planting that was done at that time was not, wouldn't have been necessarily directed towards the river, but it was as part of bioswales and, maintaining existing trees as much as we could.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my only concern, Dorothea, and it's not a huge concern, and because I know you've tried to address it, is the HVAC units on the roof. Because this sits in a hole, those get sort of seen from above, at least on Livingston, looking through and to somewhat on Depot at the high end. So I didn't know, it may be enough because as you go down Depot, it lowers, and maybe you just see a little bit of it like your illustration shows. But was curious, they're big units, and I know the original building did not have units; it was geothermal, and so this is obviously a different system. So
I think from Livingston, in many ways they're shielded. So if you see the plan right now, the main largest unit, which is the one for the gym, is kind of located right here over the bathrooms, or it's kind of over the corridor, but like let's say about where the bathrooms are located. So I think that should be effectively screened by the way that the building is tilted, but as well by the time you kind of come to the corner of Depot and Livingston, the existing building screens it also from view. I think from here, I wouldn't be too concerned that it would be visible. And then once you're kind of around the building, at least from the street level, but I think also from the kind of the green areas here, the parapet should be able to conceal it properly. We're trying to find a good measure once the units are finalized and our structure is absolutely finalized, to find the right height for that parapet to screen it. I would be curious if there are, if there's any kind of requirements to go or to prove like from certain angles or distances or viewpoints, anything like that.
Oh, I wish our guidelines had those kinds of details, Dorothea. Yeah. Maybe you'd like to be on the committee to help rewrite them. No, I think the intent is to screen. It's just a very general intention to screen. Yeah. And I realize that you may be, if there's some flexibility and you're looking at it, maybe it's something staff can do a final review at as you get closer to implementation.
Yeah.
I appreciate
the intent is absolutely to screen it, to kind of find a good measure in my mind between kind of how tall that volume gets in between there, because it's also a visible element, and to kind of negotiate that. So that's absolutely the intent, so that these units are not visible.
And is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the sunscreen that you're eventually using it has not yet been finalized. The illustration that's on the
finalized.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're kind of one of these elements where we're kind of having to work just kind of through the budget at this point. We're about to finish the design development stage, at which point we hope to be at a kind of a better understanding of cost to where we can get into those details, because we know kind of where we're at with the budget.
And that has happened before, because we look at things early, and sometimes, and this is something we'll consider, is have a caveat in the approval to review by staff as you finalize details that have implication to the design elements. The other question I had was just related to the stormwater and the bioretention. Well, actually, two questions related to those. Is there a downspout system that feeds into that, or is it a direct flow, sheet flow?
Yes. So basically, one of the elements that happens here is that because we're shedding to the south side, there will be basically a gutter and downspout. And part of actually the reason, and I forgot to mention that, of the screen is to be able to have a structure which we can attach downspouts and route them down into this area. Because it's a large roof, it will need a number of downspouts, and we can basically use structural grid to have sufficient amount of downspouts that can then feed down and be kind of captured into that area. And then I think the idea is to tie them all together and then to release them into this retention pond, kind of from one kind of riprap apron.
And then my other question related to the bioretention field is, you talked about bridging, but it seems on the drawings it's a concrete walkway. So bridging in the sense that it's a high area over two lower areas, but not a physical bridge, right?
No, it's it's more like and this is not fully captured either in all detail just yet, because realistically, that kind of type of sidewalk bridge or concrete element, I think the landscape architect had a detail here, actually cannot bridge that far. So it's more like a small raised sort of walkway.
Oh, it is a bridge.
Allows water to flow. Okay. Yeah, it is actually a bridge.
Okay, because the plans show concrete. Yeah, and that's what confused me.
The idea is to have it is actually concrete. So the idea is that it is kind of more like a bridge that's built like a thickened slab that goes over, this kind of mouth of the stormwater system. But realistically, it'll only span maybe about 10 feet. So what is shown in the plan here is a little bit too generous for the type of bridge. So that we're kind of working through the details of that right now.
And so I think I understand that, but then the railing system for that, would it be what's shown in that photograph, which is, I assume, is it glass? Metal and glass?
No. The railing system, this is a picture that the landscape architect gave us to kind of show the general intention of the bridge. I don't have that designed right now. It might have to be, I don't think it would be glass. It would, if anything, be probably a steel rail, hopefully not a guardrail if we can avoid it. The idea is right now that it's only about 2 feet there, maybe a little bit less even. But if it does drop beyond that, then obviously it would have to be a guardrail. Yeah. It would have, all the guardrail detailing. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be a metal element, there would be no glazing in this condition.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Joe.
Yes, I can hear you.
This is mainly about the outdoor basketball court. I like the concept of having an outdoor court like that with a covered roof. I'm just concerned from having played basketball that there are plenty of times when the ball doesn't hit the backboard and may continue on out into the field or into the bioretention pond. Would there be, and I noticed that the proposed sunscreen only comes down to about 10 feet off the ground, so that won't serve to stop runaway balls. Would there be any thought as to how to, contain those so they don't? That was just one thought. And also,
we did have. Oh, sorry. You keep going.
I just was wondering if the outdoor court would be lit for evening use or on dark days.
Yes. So to your first questions about the screening, we did consider it, and I think because we have, quite a bit of distance kind of out here into the sort of porch area, which is a good point. Like, I think some kind of ball stop is probably needed. We tried to stay away from thing in a sense of the kind of visual that gives of like kind of a cage or anything like that. So the idea is actually to allow the ball at this point to go beyond the perimeter and people having to retrieve it, but with the idea that, we are facing mostly grassy areas here, and then maybe at the front, there's a good question of if we need a little bit more of a stop. It's a good point. I think we're trying to find a balance between the kind of aesthetics that are welcoming and very open, and to try and stay away from kind of a fencing that has the sort of cage look of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
sure.
It's a very good point. In some ways, especially in the negotiation with the stormwater system, and I think in the further development, we should look at that a little bit further. As for the lighting, yes, this court would be lit, and from the cover, we would have suspended lights from the roof right now. I should probably add that this cover is also in some ways under kind of cost investigation, actually. So things could a little bit change kind of going down the road, exactly what's covered, so to speak, or not, or if, this would become an alternate of some kind, just kind of for the record.
And again, I guess if things change from the design we're recommending for approval, then those would be either reviewed by staff or directed back to us.
Exactly.
One thing I noticed, you were talking about the bioswale too and the bridge, that on the CDC drawings, there were seat walls shown across the front of the building, but I didn't see anything related to that on your drawings, nor did I see any details for that. And maybe that just didn't get coordinated between the two.
Yeah, I think we don't have all those details just yet. And I think we're showing on the landscape on the civil plan right now, but yeah, not yet in full detail on all drawings. We're kind of working through a lot of those details right now, what this bridge is made out of and how we can kind of construct it.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other additional lighting on the building or on the site that you'll be adding?
Yes, so we have an egress door kind of here at the end of the corridor. So we will have, egress kind of lighting going back out here, just kind of generally, building safety and egress lighting. The idea is to basically use a similar strategy to the existing building, so where you have somewhat decorative lighting, try to find fixtures that do similar things. It's, I think, on some levels in terms of, battery backup options and so on, on a technical level, we have to find what we can find best to match it. But the idea is that it looks somewhat more decorative rather than, too functional. And then obviously the court here is also lit with I think kind of a base lighting, like a lower level, let's say, I think at some point when we're looking at it, maybe the 25% light that's on a photo cell, so it kind of comes on at night and just provides, safety lighting, so it's not like a dark space. And then with Occupancy Center to where if anybody comes out there or wants to play, it would turn on. And we will have some lighting here, obviously also on those, like on that kind of bridge area, which will be most likely some kind of bollards. But overall, we're not looking at adding a lot of light because obviously there's already lighting at the existing building, existing entrance, as well as the parking lot. So we're just adding kind of necessary building lighting and a little bit in those front community spaces, as well as the outdoor court, obviously. That's the general idea.
Yeah. And,
I have one more.
go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I had one more question, Dorothea. About,
yes.
You say somewhere that the brick veneer is also meant as a possible canvas for public art. How would that have panels on that could be installed on the brick? Because brick itself, I mean, my first thing that came to mind was graffiti, but I know you don't want to encourage that. So how do you plan to have them as a canvas for public art?
Well, there is, a kind of a public art process, correct, to where like an artist would be engaged to create the public art. And we were actually thinking of, yes, to use that brick as the canvas or to give that to the artist to paint on it or, create that art on it. I would say that's certainly in keeping with a lot of the kind of street art or that's around in the community, but with the idea that it's not a graffiti that's done, by somebody who's tagging it, but from like as a commissioned art piece, that's kind of supposed to connect obviously to what the community would like to see there and reflects history possibly or kind of other interests of the community. Obviously that's part of, I think, a process that's, between the community and the artists in many ways. And it has not started yet, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. I guess I was imagining the brick as having, more texture than was really conducive to painting art on. But maybe you've thought through that. It sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, I think, for architecture on some levels, maybe we don't necessarily feel like there has to go, paint on top of a brick. I think it always depends, in my mind, on the different conditions. And there are certainly extremely good mural artists out there, and they can create any surface into a beautiful piece of art. So it's not really clear right now, like how much of it would be covered. I don't see that every single portion of it would be covered, but could it be? Possibly. And if that was the case, maybe down the road, I think it's in some ways it's a matter of further discussion, but I think it's a good canvas. I think street arts don't mind it necessarily. Now they have their own techniques, obviously, of maybe what they need as some kind of primers, or sometimes they have to add certain, layers of paint in order to make it stick correctly. That's a little bit different condition, but I think in general we're open for it to be painted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Dorothy, I just want to go back to the lighting. Typically what we usually ask for, and maybe something to think about for down the road going to the full commission, is at least getting some potential prototype images, whether it's, just an image of the existing building, we're going to try to do it like that, or, a bollard like this, or, something similar. It gives both us, the commission, an idea of the palette that you're thinking about, and then it allows staff down the road to tweak it if need to be, or ask for, more clarification once you get a definitive solution. And I realize, when you build it, the product might not even be available. So, it happens.
Yeah.
So, but that is a helpful tool than words. And so, again, we may caveat a motion that illustrates that. So,
Absolutely.
And let me see. I got a mess. I can't read it. I quickly saw something come up with Lindsay. She's got noise and something about signage. So
she's asking,
did you see it? Yeah.
Yeah. She's asking, would you want to elaborate on signage some and how that aligns with guidelines? I don't know if you've planned additional signage for this project.
Well, looks like new building signage. Yeah.
It's a good question. We actually have not breached that subject. It's possible that we would incorporate a new building signage across the gym front. And I think we're showing something of that level, possibly on the building.
Yeah, you had a big across below the sunscreen.
Yes. Yes, it's a little bit hard to see because of probably the screen, but we have it right now in the kind of this area here. There is existing signage for the building. So I think this, in my mind, was part of, looking at kind of where we're at with the budget and seeing what kind of need there is to have this additional signage if we already have signage for the building. So I think that's something actually that we have to further discuss as a team.
Okay. Any other questions for Dorothea?
No, and Jean, I don't know if we haven't. It used to be that all of these projects went directly from the committee to the commission for a vote. And we had kind of rearranged that process so that maybe really people or applicants, submit their plans for review by staff, so any technical things can get caught that might affect design before they come to the commission, if you remember that. And so this would be a level 1 project, so it's really staff level review. I have not reviewed it for compliance because it's in the River Arts form-based code area. I suspect, we kind of left that district that it's in the open space district, which is a kind of a recreational government-based district, and it doesn't have a ton of restrictions on it. So I would suspect it's complying very well. But it may be that, I guess I'm asking a question. It may make sense for this to go through some staff review before it comes to the commission right away. And in that point, they could have some of these details that you all have asked questions about, maybe ironed out. So I've made a list. And they may not all be perfectly ironed out by then or not, I'm not sure, but roof material, sunscreen material, outdoor lighting, seat walls, parapet height, and a question about additional signage.
Seat walls and handrail, bridge.
Yeah, I did say seat wall. Okay, handrail over the bridge.
And the bridge.
Yeah. And the bridge itself, is that?
Yeah, well, I think just clarification on the, and I think you were saying, Dorothea, whether it's a guardrail or not, you'll kind of pick that up with the handrail, I assume.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, and then Joe added a note here about maybe if something needs to be to catch balls, it could be a net, simple as a net, which can be lowered as needed or something. I was thinking even like a fence around the bioswale, but that may not be something we want either. Yeah, I mean, that kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll think it through. And I think our landscape architects service, they have also a lot of experience with these kinds of situations, and they have been a great resource to find good solutions for this type of problem.
And I think the only other thing I would add, Sasha, is whether or not there's a roof over the court, the outside court. Sounds like that might disappear with cost cutting, depending on, I guess once you get a budget, you're getting a DD estimate, Dorothea? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So it sounds like we're at a point, if there are no other questions, to present a motion to the effect that for approval through a process to go to staff for further review of a list that Sasha has made prior to going to AARC. Right, commission.
Not
Too many
HRT,
commissions.
though.
I know, too many commissions. Okay. Does someone want to either make that motion or that could be a motion that gets seconded?
And Lindsay, I muted you. I'm sorry, but maybe you can, hopefully, you can unmute.
Can't hear you.
Yep, I can create that motion. I don't know if I can rephrase it how you did.
Well, you can do it. You can try.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have sort of a motion. Lindsay taking my words and putting it in her mouth, coming from a second with Joe. And then I need to, I guess, call the vote. So I see, Joe, you're still open mic'd. How do you vote?
I approve.
Okay, Lindsay?
Aye.
Aye. And Jane? Aye. So, Dorothea, thank you so much. Wish you well with this work. And staff, I guess if there's, if you need us to help or weigh in on anything, just let us know, individually or as a group, or whatever you need. So, I think that's all I have. I don't know if staff has anything or.
No.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I guess we will be adjourned until further notice.
Great.
Thank you, Dorothea. Thank you, Pete.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
You sound great.
Appreciate your help.
Yeah, and thanks for hanging in with my technical problems.
No worries. All good. Glad it got resolved.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.